Welcome to our episode of Biblical Archaeology, From the Ground Down. Presented by Bible Interact and hosted by Dr. George Sparks. Join us as we explore the fascinating world of the Bible from leading experts in the field of archaeology.
Hello everyone, I'm Dr. David Graves, an experienced biblical archaeologist and CEO of Electronic Christian Media. I'm here today with another exciting episode on our Archaeology Discoveries channel, where we discuss important archaeological artifacts related to the Bible. Thanks for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe to our channel.
Good morning, people. My name is Dr. George Sparks, and this is Biblical Archaeology from the Ground Down. My special guest today is Dr. David Graves, and Dr. Graves received his PhD, the University of Aberdeen, has been involved in teaching the Bible and archaeology for more than 35 years. He has taught at Oxford University, England, Liberty University School of Divinity, provided tours of the Ashmolean as well as the British museums, traveled extensively in the Middle East, has been involved in the Mount Ararat research. He has excavated at Qumran, the Temple Mount, and Shiloh in Israel, as well as Tel El Hammam in Jordan for over 10 seasons. He has been also involved in excavating the Dead Sea Scroll caves and has authored many books as well as publications. Welcome to the program. Before we get started, you just published a new book, did you not?
Yes, George, good to be with you. Yes, yesterday I was able to finalize the publication of my latest work. It's an illustrated dictionary of biblical archaeology, and it has 1,100 articles and entries in it, and over 800 photographs. So it's a go-to for anybody that's interested in archaeology or finding out about biblical archaeology, and everything's defined there in full color. Available on Amazon.
Do you have a copy on you right now? Do you have a copy?
Not yet. I've ordered it, but I haven't received it yet. So,
well, you got to order your own book. You got to pay for your own book when you order it?
Yep, I do. Yeah, you do get a little cheaper price on it for proofing, but they still make their money. Amazon still makes their money.
Okay, so a shameless promotion for me. This is the first time you're advertising your book, right, on this program?
Yes, basically. I did send some stuff out on Facebook, but then they turned around and blocked my channel. So
that's because you're a bad boy. You're up to mischief. Always time. Soon as we get done with our programs, who knows what you're up to out there in this world? But you're from Canada, us Americans down here. What we call the Southern 48 or whatever you call us. We know about those Canadians. Hey, just off subject, but this was funny. I had Dr. David Falk, an Egyptologist, on the program, and I was reading his bibliography, his academic profile, and he published, along with his wife, an article on vampires in North America. And I thought, out of all this, it's like, it had to do with a lot of stuff dealing with the Exodus and Egypt, the Ark of the Covenant. I mean, really cool stuff, climate changes. And then all of a sudden, this one comes up. I told him, I said, I'm curious, why are there vampires down here in America, but you don't have any in Canada? I mean, is it too cold? I mean, they just don't. You'd think that you have that's up in Alaska. But they got more dark days than light days. You think that's where they'd want to go. I'm completely off subject, but when I was talking about bad boys and stuff, hopefully people enjoy going off the topic a little bit. But we're going to get that book. What I'll do is, this is not live. So when I get a picture of it, I'll implant it into the video so everybody can take a look at it.
Okay.
And you will be the first ones to see his book and the first ones to publish it or to purchase it. But you published it and you got to purchase it. So I guess the rest of us got to purchase it as well.
Yeah,
it's only fair. It's only. All right. There was an article that was on Google, YouTube, in the press. A recent discovery in Jerusalem, I believe that it was on the south side of the Temple Mount area. The article that I read wasn't clear exactly where on the south side, because that's where they have the tourist attraction called the Archaeological Park is on the south side of the Temple Mount. So it didn't say exactly where, but it's a little seal, is it not? Like an
It's
amulet, a seal.
Well, it's an amulet that's got an engraving on it, and looks quite interesting. I'll show a couple of photographs of it here in a moment, and everybody can
Okay.
have a peek at it. But it intrigued me. It comes from the southwest side, the archaeological park, and somewhere in that vicinity, as you say, they haven't been too clear as to the exact location discovered yet, but certainly in Jerusalem, in the Temple Mount area. And they found a lot of other seals there in recent days, but this one's kind of unique, and we'll have a chat about it.
All right. So yes, it's always fun to chat about new discoveries when they first come out, and maybe different opinions and insights into to what exactly this amulet is.
All righty, so here's the picture of it. It's an ancient seal with a winged genie on it, and it inscribed some Jewish names found in Jerusalem in Proto-Hebrew. There it is there. Has the inscription on it, belonging to he has helped, son of he is salvation, and has the name of Lo Yeshozar ben Hosheayu. And so the name is actually mentioned in Jeremiah 43:2 with the two words and then man's name inverted. So it was either a common name in antiquity, or perhaps the person who owned it, mentioned in the Bible. They date it to 2,700 year old. So it's 700 BC, featuring a winged figure in the Hebrew script that reveals the Assyrian influence, which is kind of interesting because you have this winged figure. They call it a genie, but this winged figure on it, you can see the wings here, which was quite common in Assyrian iconology. So that's it there. It has a hole in it. If I go back up here in the top, it has a hole. So there was a cord that went through it, likely worn as around the neck or on the wrist or something like that. Quite common for carrying these things around there. A lot of them had holes in them. And it would be used as an amulet, or could also be used as a seal, impressing this into clay. So that's the item. It's a fairly rare. I'll stop sharing there. It's quite rare, apparently.
Yeah, I got the article. I pulled it up. Of course, I copied it and pasted it on my phone so I could have access to it.
Yeah. Now, it was announced by the Israeli Antiquities Authority, the IAA, and it was announced back on the 29th of August is when they published the article in Jerusalem Post. So again, very recent. And it shows, it's actually one of the first time that a winged genie as a protective magical figure had been found in Israel and in that region. Now, the figures of winged demons are known in Neo-Assyrian art from the 9th to the 7th century BC, and they're considered a kind of protective demon, according to the mythology. And they believe that the seal was used as an amulet worn by the individual for protection, perhaps to ward off evil spirits. and it's quite highly artistic. So it's very finely done, just beautifully representing the winged demon or genie on it. And the interesting thing, of course, is that we have a name mentioned in Scripture.
Right.
Ronnie Reich of the University of Haifa remarks that comparing the shape of the letters and the writing to those of other Hebrew seals and bullae, that's clay seal impressions from Jerusalem, shows that in contrast to the carefully engraving of the demon, inscribing the names on the seal was done in a sloppy manner, according to him. It is
Right.
not impossible that perhaps it was Yehoazar himself who engraved the names on the object, he speculates.
Right.
So again, a personal object that was carried by an individual from that time period, 2,700 years ago, in the glyphic style of the Neo-Assyrian, the late First Temple period, showing the influence, of course, of the Assyrian Empire that had conquered the entire region. That's certainly evident here. And the discovery of the ancient seal provides new understandings of the influence of the Assyrian Empire on Judah, particularly in Jerusalem during that First Temple period. So it's kind of an interesting find. They're finding more and more of these all of the time. The seal will be presented to the public at the 25th Annual City of David Research Conference on September the 4th, which is this week. I think it's going to be on Wednesday.
Well, like, you got your plane ticket to go?
Yeah, I wish.
You would go. I don't know. I kind of avoid that at the moment myself, but see, I thought it was interesting. A number of different things about it. Of course, a couple names were, as
Yeah,
you stated, were referred to also in the biblical text. I'm
yeah.
just scrolling through here real quick. I'm sorry we're not really formal. Usually we got all these fancy PowerPoints going on, and the name Yehoezer appears in the Bible in its abbreviated form as Yoezer, who was one of King David's warriors.
That's another thing. Yes.
Definitely. Well, that would be before Solomon's temple, so that would actually be before the temple. Additionally, a similar name, Azariah ben Yaha. I'm sorry, people, is mentioned in the book of Jeremiah and describes events from the first temple era. So it's the book of Jeremiah, but he's talking back, describing events from the first temple era. I guess that's what it's saying, around 2,700 years ago. Now, this is what I'm thinking when I'm looking at this article. Okay, first of all, the name appears in abbreviated form as one of King David's warriors, but that would actually be before the temple was built. Okay,
Yeah.
secondly,
Now,
all
George,
right, then it's go
George, I
ahead.
want to point out to our audience carefully here that there is no evidence that we can specifically place this amulet in the hands of that individual in Scripture,
Right.
and that it was owned by him. What we can say is that it dates to that time period, and that name was used during that time period, and the same name is found in Scripture as is found on this amulet. But I can't say that it was in his hand, owned by that individual in Scripture. We need to be cautious about making more of the evidence than is there. So this is not proving the Bible, folks. This is not proving the Bible. It is supporting the evidence of the use of
Right.
those names in that time period. And I want to be cautious there about how much evidence it does give us. But it's still very cool and shows us that Assyrian influence in Judah at the time. Carry on there, George.
Well, yeah. I mean, exactly. What you did now, what Dr. Grave did is he just covered his academic behind.
Exactly. Well,
You're you're being academically accurate. All right, but you just took away all the sensationalism. I'm going to have to block so much more. I'm going to edit that out. You're not going to like it, but that's
there, George, there goes your clicks.
it.
Your clickbait's gone. Sorry about that.
You know what? I told you before the program, I got accused of doing things on the program, bringing on certain guest speakers to get more subscribers. I thought that's part of what YouTube does, isn't it? Bring on an interesting guest and create dialogue. I thought, like, sure. What was the point? But you're the anti of that. You just took away my sensationalism, man. All
But
right. But
still,
anyway, fair enough. Fair enough. Because also in the same article, because we're talking about a name that was used before the temple. So how could it be related to the time period of the Assyrians when at that time the first temple still remained, right? Makes sense. But also we're talking about here the time period of Jeremiah, who was the prophet to the king Josiah. And this is going to be during the Babylonian period and the destruction of the temple, Jerusalem and everything around 586. So it's going to be in the 6th century. Of course, I don't want this to be confusing for people, but as we go back further in time, let's say instead of 586, we're at 610. So technically, we're going to call that the 7th century, late in the 7th century, because I found it interesting that in this article it says Azariah ben Hoshea, I guess how you pronounce it, is mentioned in the book of Jeremiah and describes events from the first temple era around 2,700 years ago. So I thought, did he mean 2,600 years ago? Like the 600 when the temple was destroyed? That would be Babylonian. So that wouldn't make sense because the seal represents the Assyrian period. So in my mind, I'm kind of rambling through here, making more of it than probably what I should. But, academics like to do that because when you read this
George,
article, yeah, go ahead.
they date it to 2700 BC, 2700 years ago, not
Right.
BC. Sorry. So it'd be,
Oh, did I say
700.
BC?
No, they're if you did the math, you'd be in around 700 BC. So
That's
the
I said if I said BC, then that's
2700 years ago would be 700 BC. So
okay. BC means before critical.
yeah,
But that's what I meant, folks. We're talking about the 6th century, 586, 6th century BC, and then this is Assyrian, so it's within 700 BC, and that was my bad if I turned around and said BC for the whole thing. That would put us into the early Bronze Age. But anyway, so the seal, you know what? Also, you already read this. You took a lot of good points that I hope you would leave for me, and you took them away.
I'll repeat them, George. It's okay to repeat.
But it talked about it also being a winged demon. Why would anybody want a seal of a winged demon?
Well, that's why they consider it to be an amulet. So it's to protect them from those evil spirits. And it shows the influence, which was quite common in the ancient Near East and the Assyrian culture, to emulate and to elevate these kinds of images. We see such images on the Babylonian, the Ishtar gates with the dragons, and we have also not seals, but some carvings of these winged cherubs and seraphim. So it was a common theme in antiquity for whatever reasons, but we see it here now in Jerusalem on an amulet from that time period, which is really, really significant and cool.
But the Assyrian influence, but the thing is because at that time they were a conquered people. That's why it's on the amulet.
Well, they also had interaction with the Assyrians for a long period of time. So they did a lot of trading back and forth. So this individual probably had some influence. maybe his mother-in-law was from there, or some of his distant relatives came from there, or he had done some trading and liked it, but it's got his name on it, so it was something he probably did himself. Um, as Roney had said, Dr. Roney said that because of the style of the letters, and I can read some of them just off of the Hay and the Yod. You can see some of them there. The backward E, so it's clearly Paleo Hebrew, so it is legible, and but it's probably crudely made, but at the same time, quite artistic in the way that he did this beautiful wing genie or seraph.
So it was several months ago. We had Dr. Irving Finkel from the British Museum. I think his title would be a Syriologist. And of course, he's known for translating cuneiform tablets and his book, The First Ghost and the Ark Before Noah. I asked him, well, in this conversation, when we were talking about the first ghost, and that's the name of the book, The First Ghost, and it talks about how the ancient people dealt with their paranormal. Now, I'm getting to a point here, people. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about the Assyrians, because in their afterlife, they had the fear of the unknown, just like we do. They had a belief in the benevolent spirits, those that were good, and the malevolent spirits, those that were, we would call them evil demons. If I give an idea to a translation to that malevolent, but also there were what we would call he called, and I never knew this, that there would be Assyrian, I'm just going to say demon. And I think it has probably sometimes a wrong connotation in our culture, referring to how it reflect on that as Syrian culture when it was being believed and used.
Well, George, you can say spirits.
Okay, spirits. But anyway, this is kind of like in a family of malevolent spirits. It doesn't prevent a malevolent spirit from having sympathy for an individual. And there were certain, we could say, spirits, malevolent spirits, that were so powerful that if they were on your side, they would ward off all the other evil ones. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I know it's complicated, but this is not our culture, it's their culture. And the one he was talking about that would ward off other evil spirits was the Pazuzu. And Pazuzu had a brother called Humbaba. I used to have both of them in the collection here, and then they went to museums. Now, here's the interesting thing. How many people have not seen the movie The Exorcist? I like the beginning more than the movie, because in the beginning, what were they doing? They were at an archaeological excavation, were they not?
That's how it starts. I've never seen the movie, so I couldn't tell you.
Oh, my.
No.
So anyway, the beginning of the movie, they're at an excavation. And they're digging. Well, something was found. And they go and they get the archaeologist who's very old. And he comes over and he gets his trowel and he's in there and he's pulling things out. And he pulls out, and it looks like a very evil head. Well, that is the amulet of the Pazuzu. And in the movie, it's the spirit emphasized that because the girl back in the United States was messing with the Ouija board. And it seems like it was the spirit of the Pazuzu that she contacted that caused the whole uproar. And Dr. Finkel, now he's the Assyriologist, not me. He said Pazuzu got the bad rap because, yes, it's an entity, a spiritual entity, but it was ones that the Assyrian used, the amulet, to keep other evil away. So he got the bad rap. He goes, among those spirits, he goes, that's the one that would help you in the Syrian belief. Now, please don't email me more comments and say how, because I'm just telling you what a curator said. And I thought that was interesting because the whole time I thought, I was going to blame that one right there too, but that's Hollywood, right?
Yeah.
And this is a field that this guy studied. What has he been a curator since 1978 for the British Museum?
Yeah,
So, you know, it's a tie. It's, yeah.
he's read a lot of Assyrian stories, so he has a good idea of getting in their minds what things are like. Now, I do want to point out that where this particular amulet is found in Jerusalem, the southwest side of the Temple Mount today, is not very far away, if you remember, to the temple where we find another winged creature.
Wait a second. Are you going to talk about Hezekiah?
No,
Okay. Go
no,
ahead.
but there you go back to another winged creature. No, I'm talking about the Ark of the Covenant, upon which sat the cherubim with
Oh,
wings
you're right.
upon it. And
Right.
remember, so this imagery of this idea of wings of winged creatures was very common in the ancient Near East. And so when God told the Israelites
Mm,
to build the Ark of the Covenant and put two cherubim on top with wings that overshadowed the ark and um, the kaporeth, or the tablet, the lid of gold. He was speaking to them in terms of how the ancient Near Eastern people thought.
right.
The Assyrian tradition, there are still 7 winged creatures. Here we have 2 wings, but in the ark, in the temple, not far from this location where it was found, we have the Ark of the Covenant with 4 wings over top of it. So a common theme, a common motif that everybody in the ancient Near East would understand. Uncommon for us today. We think of angels today, I guess, with wings.
Yes. Yeah.
So it
Like a
has that
Cupid.
idea to it.
Cupid for Valentine's Day. That was what was on top of the ark, with the little bow.
Cupid. Yeah.
But with this, more like they say a cherub. And then if, okay, I should say if, the idea of the covenant, the Ark of the Covenant looks very, very similar to other relics, furniture that was used by the Egyptians.
Sure. And we have them carrying them with, you know, 2
Poles.
poles,
Yeah.
pictures of these carrying a large box, um, almost like a crate, uh, in the pyramids of Egypt on their walls. So we can actually see them carrying these. So again, the whole biblical narrative and the furnishings of the Ark of the Covenant and the furnishings in the temple, um, all catered back to the time period in their minds. God speaks understandably to man and in their context and culture.
Mm. Now, if they came out of Egypt, because we got different types of cherubs, you got cherubs that could represent a Babylonian style, cherubs that are a Assyrian style, and then you got cherubs that were an Egyptian style, which is kind of like the Sphinx that is in front of the pyramids,
Yes,
except it'd be a Sphinx with wings, something along that line.
yes.
Um, so I wonder what the Ark of the Covenant, when it talks about the cherubs, I wonder what they look like the head of a lion and the wings of an eagle, a
Yeah, well,
bird.
we have, in Babylon, you have the um, Lamassu. These are
Mhm.
these were large um, human heads and a bull for feet and body with wings that guarded the entrance to their buildings.
Right.
Um, so these things were huge and ginormous. They just were almost, I think, I've seen them in the British Museum. They would stand probably um, 10 feet tall.
Did you just use the word ginormous? Is that an actual word?
Ginormous. No,
Ginormous?
I put two together, but that's one I've always used as a
You didn't
Canadian.
mean to say Nephilim. You didn't mean you're talking about the Nephilim, are you? Because
And
those are
no,
actually popular. So I could get right back into sensational, no matter how hard you try to go academic. Hey, give me a second right here. I want to share something with the peoples. Oh, here's a little It's a little idol. I don't know what it represents. Probably more like an Asherah. This is from
Or Teraphim,
15th century. Huh?
or Teraphim, household god.
Uh-huh. But anyway, you can see she's holding her breast. Very, very similar to what we see the Asherah represented in Israel, where it's kind of like a very straight, uh, it looks like a tree trunk, but it's made out of terracotta. And the heads were poured in molds. So they kind of all look alike, and then asserted to the trunk. And she was holding very large breasts representing fertility. And this is very common. You can see them in the Israel Museum in different collections. Let me grab something else. Oh, this one's. Well, I just brought this one out because it's Elamite.
And that one was Elamite.
Yes,
Okay.
and it's late Bronze Age.
Yep.
Which is a little bit later. I'm sorry. Let me bring it up higher. It's actually on a stand, so I set it down. I'll take a picture so these look clear to everybody. But these are Elamite. And these are actually late Bronze Age, so 1550 to 1200 BC, or 3,500 years ago. Is that better?
That's better. That's good.
And but we go off topic a little bit because we're talking about you can say foreign elements that are used in the Israelite. You could say seals, amulets, icons.
Iconology,
And
yes.
yeah, and it does, as you can see, people, it does happen. But it was the Elamites, along with several other different kings from Mesopotamia, that attacked a city called Tel El Hammam. And it's the Battle of the Kings in Genesis that mentions the Elamites.
Yes.
So anyway, I thought you'd probably like to see that, David,
Yeah, that's good.
since you were at Tel El Hammam for 10 plus seasons.
Yes.
I thought I'd be nice to you and show this because you were my score supervisor. That's all. I'm being nice.
Always good to see
But
something from
yeah, but look at it's typical fertility of that time period. The way fertility looks, the way what can I say? The way the ancient people see fertility. Now, you know what? Of course, it's a female. And I think in our culture, when we think fertility, everything's sex. Those people, we think about Tel El Hammam, Sodom, Gomorrah. What's the first thing people think about is immoral sex. But fertility in the ancient culture means rain. It means the crops grow. It means the cattle is prosperous, so that you have more cattle.
the
Also,
blessing,
family.
the blessing
Go
of a
ahead.
family. The
Yeah,
greatest
and
blessing
even
of
when
the
right,
greatest
and when
blessing,
Israel comes out of Egypt, remember what they're told. Where are they going to? The land of milk and honey.
honey.
It describes fertility. Right, so that's not uncommon in the ancient world. And but we were talking about different, like the demon spirit on the little seal, and then we went off subject to make this more interesting, to put it in its ancient context, if you will. We also had that seal. If we back up a little bit, the seal of King Hezekiah, which has an Egyptian wing scarab on it.
Mhm.
And here we go. Let me get you another. This is like show and tell today. Yeah, I hope everybody likes this. How about that? Now,
Yes.
this was actually worn, this was stitched to the mummy cloth. So this is actual, but this is kind of the design that's on King Hezekiah's stamp seal that he'd wear. Somebody, it doesn't mean he would stamp it, but those that were his administration would have a seal probably too. And they would stamp jars with his seal. And it meant something like, in some cases, like the Lamellic candles, meaning Lamellic king.
Yeah.
And I don't know if people can see this, but here you got, let me do this. I don't recommend people licking old stuff, but you can see now there's a seal stamp on there.
Yeah, Lemlik.
And this is probably because of the way the handle is, this is probably back in the time period, 7th, 6th century, around there. You could once attached to a jar, and jar handles were stamped.
Yeah. Any rim on that? Are the rims?
No, no, not at all.
The rim would be
So
very
yeah,
close. That could be very close to the top of that, but I'm
mhm,
speculating. We used to find a lot of those at Tel Hammam, thousands of them. Not
right.
lemliks, not with a seal on them, but we did find some. I actually found one with a fingerprint on it. So where the seal
That
would
is
go,
cool.
there was a fingerprint. You could still see the fingerprint on it, pushed in the clay as it was made. Um, the potter had just put his impression on it. It didn't say made in China. It said made by Jehu or something.
Okay. But when we go back further in time before the potter's wheel, all pottery is made by hand. So then you can feel the impressions. And I think it's so cool. You can actually feel the impressions of those people that made the clay juglet, sometimes 5,000 years ago, such as at Baba Dra. And every
Yes.
once in a while, because they're squeezing it, you'll see a fingerprint in there.
Yeah.
And you think this fingerprint is like 5,000 years old. How cool is that? It is.
And I have a piece of Rowan pottery that we had a fingerprint in.
Mhm.
It was a part of an oil lamp from the Roman period, Roman
That's right.
Byzantine period, and had you can clearly see the fingerprint in it, and amazing to go back and actually see evidence of humans that made it.
And that is a lot of fun when it happens. Just use your imagination, think how did they feel? What were they going through? And just a lot of things that would go through one's mind when you're excavating, you come across something that has been preserved, and such as
There's
a stamp
somebody,
seal, but also a thumbprint when they accidentally put their thumb into it, the
yeah,
clay as well.
yeah. This is
But
made by an actual human being and
uh,
was held by somebody, you know, 3,000 years ago or 2,000
right,
years ago. Pretty incredible. So it's a lot of
right.
fun.
But hey, everybody, leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Um, this you can see the article. David brought up the amulet. The article is easy to access when you go on the web. Maybe I'll make a copy of the initial article and put it up so everybody can see it and know where to go to. Um, but this is all really cool stuff in archaeology. I know I went off topic when we were talking about the Pazuzu that was in The Exorcist and what different spirits meant in different cultures. No way was I indicating go buy a Ouija board. I'm just discussing what was in the movie. I know a lot of you probably already seen it. Um, but this is fun stuff. It really is. And to find a very unique seal, and it's probably about the size maybe of a fingernail or something. It's not going to be large at all. And think that at one time, 2,700 years ago, 700 BC, that somebody's actually wearing this and possibly it got lost. And then you think, well, how did it get lost? Were they busy? Were the Assyrians, like making a siege to the city? Well, why would something that valuable just be lost? To me, that's another thing that triggers the imagination. And the fact the seal that itself is an Assyrian seal, but on or has what we call Paleo Hebrew, actually worn by somebody that would, have no other gods before me. Then what in the world is this doing on your seal? Another thing is that is very close because it's 7th century, First Temple time period. It's a seal, and it has an image on it that's Assyrian, and it's also very close to the Temple Mount. What in the world's going on? You think no graven images where you're really getting close to the place the house of the guy that told you not to do that, and there's an image on something. But it raises the question, because then we have King Hezekiah. I know I'm rambling, and I'll bring up King Hezekiah's seal, because he was called the first king of Reformation.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have after that Josiah during the Babylonian time period. And
So
here's the king of Reformation. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
We know there's synchronization between the different cultures: Egyptian, Assyrian, Elamite. This idea that we find a mythical figure on a amulet, within eyeshot of the temple, on the Temple Mount, probably an administrator with a similar name to what we find in Scripture. It's just significant. It just gives us another glimpse, another view into the culture and the history and the time period of the people who lived, in the 7th century BC.
I don't know if you can see that mummy thing behind me. Right? Oh, that poster, you can see it right there. I don't know if it's close enough where you can see the winged scarab on it, too. It's got a winged scarab right here, where these things are actually stitched to the mummy garment. I don't know. Maybe you can see if I stoop down. My head's too big, so it won't matter. But anyway, all right. So, people, we're just going to talk about something very simple today. The little amulet with the Paleo Hebrew on it, names that were also associated in the biblical text, and also that it had the Assyrian icon, a winged Assyrian icon, which they in the article called a genie. What would you call it, a genie? Would that be something you would say?
Not me. I would call it it looks more like a cherub, or or a winged amulet. Well,
I think I'd end up calling it a cherub or something too.
The whole thing is an amulet, but it's a winged. I would think a cherub, that kind of an idea. So, but genie is not what we think of a genie. Is coming out of a bottle.
Now, wait a minute. You share a bottle? How about like this? You ever see somebody rub a Herodian lamp?
Get a genie pop up, yeah. I dream of genie.
Well, people, that's our program today, and I hope everybody had a great time. I know I did. Doctor, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it. Everybody, thank you for subscribing and going on the channel. We're around a little over 94,000 subscribers at this time. Really appreciate it. Have a nice day, and see you next week.